Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm a Ukrainian. I have decided I will vlog daily from my country Ukraine since the start of this awful war with Russia. And in my daily videos I try to update you on the important real-life situations in my country Ukraine, and of course I'm always glad to answer your questions and to clarify some facts from our history, our culture, our background, or whatever interests you. And for a couple of days I want to take you out and show you some locations in my city, because I know you like it when I combine conversations with some excursions, but the weather does not permit us as we have rains and rains and rains. And I have just remembered that when I was at school, and I know that in many Ukrainian schools and perhaps in many post-Soviet schools, when we were introduced to the topic weather, we learned a phrase, "It's raining cats and dogs," to describe a really heavy rain. And we loved that phrase because, like, you can visualize cats and dogs falling between the raindrops. And later, when I used it in communication with native speakers, they told me it's not a popular phrase, it's something unusual. And we as children loved that. We even invented an analog, like a smaller version, "It's raining hamsters," to describe a rain that is not that strong. Anyway, let me know, have you ever come across this phrase, "It's raining cats and dogs"? Because it's raining cats and dogs outside. And today I want to speak about two lonely dictators that desperately need each other, and that is Putin and Lukashenko, who recently visited his big brother in Russia. Their combo was always led by Putin, because Putin used Lukashenko, Putin secured his regime, and that's why Lukashenko cannot break up with him. And he is a self-proclaimed president of Belarus because people did not support him back in 2020, and they had very serious protests, and personally all of us Ukrainians believe they will manage to liberate themselves, but somehow they failed, and Lukashenko stayed with the support of Russia, with the support of intelligence services, militia, and maybe lack of I don't know, lack of what? Lack of strength inside the Belarus society. But I do believe the Ukrainian victory in war with Russia will inspire them and will liberate Belarus. I'm more optimistic about their society than about the Russian. And recently Lukashenko visited Putin, where he glorified him, of course, spoke about some problems that are caused by crazy Europe, and traditionally they described Europe as rotting, as the one that does not understand what is going on, and that Russia is actually winning the war in Ukraine. Of course, it is total nonsense, but he even had an open lesson with Belarus school children, where he explained that Poland wants to attack and take away the western part of Ukraine, and Russia is fighting with NATO, protecting the rest of Ukraine from the American occupation. And for me, in the era of internet, when you can learn anything you want and there are no excuses for ignorance, I'm actually surprised that they still continue doing that. And for me, Lukashenko has already become this comic kind of character, and it's really funny to look at him, how he tries to balance his situation, because I am sure he is not that crazy as Putin, because he's a leader of a smaller country, maybe he has less psychiatric diagnosis, he does not live in a bunker, and perhaps he sees that this special military operation goes the wrong way. But at the same time, he understands he needs the support of Russia and other dictatorships. Why? Because he is a self-proclaimed dictator of Belarus. And for them, if something bad happens, they are very much afraid of this domino effect and liberation of other occupied by Russia or Russia-style countries. That's why he needs to support Putin, but he is afraid to support Putin to a great extent, because he realizes the things that Putin does here and the way the world reacts on that is a crime, and perhaps there is no way out. So what they try, they desperately pretend that everything is going according to the plan. Lukashenko even said that soon Ukraine will start negotiating because there is a huge conflict between the president of Ukraine and the military. No, of course not. And that Ukrainian armed forces are afraid of this war, and we see just the contrary, that military offices are burned in Russia, people go out on protests against mobilization, and this is another proof that they also believe in the success of Ukrainian armed forces, and they don't want to be on the way of the success of the Ukrainian armed forces. By the way, this is very, very illustrative. And what they are trying to do, they talk to each other, they have these lonely dialogues of lonely, frightened dictators, maybe last dictators of Europe, and they discuss that the world will realize they need their resources and forgive them everything. And this is a totally wrong approach, because resources, they do not belong to Putin or to Lukashenko, they belong to the lands that are now part of Russia or Belarus or whatever. But at the same time, this dig and sell economy is perhaps the worst economy you can wish for your country, because it does not inspire any kind of innovation, development, investment. It just uses the resources that the nature created on that territory, and this is totally wrong, because like this leads to various ecological problems, and people do not create anything. They are totally dependent on, like, I don't know, the forest they live close to, or the mine they can work on, and they don't build alternative ideas in their heads. And as we see, for me, it is always a question why Russia, being the largest country in the world, having so many empty, depressive regions, wants to expand. And recently I have read on social media that many Russians receive arguments why they need to come and fight in Ukraine, because you will get territories that are better developed. So they explain, they understand that Ukraine is a better developed country, and that's why they liberate us. And that we will get access to industrial regions, you will get access to better infrastructure, and based on, for example, the production of goods, the production of wheat and goods, each Russian will get plus 1,000 rubles or whatever they have to a salary. So they openly say that Ukraine is a better country, Ukraine is a richer country, Ukraine is a more developed country, but we orcs will occupy it. So that's the way they actually see wealth. For them, wealth is not something you accumulate, not something you work hard for, you collect, you pass from generation to generation. It was all lost back at the beginning of the USSR, total disrespect to private property. And what we have now, people who understand that you can become wealthy or you can become successful only if you take it away from someone, from your colleague, from the country as it happened in 90s, or from another country as it happens right now with Ukraine. So, of course, it will not work that way, because the world sees what is going on and we are strong enough to fight against them, and we have to stop this evil and toxicity. But at the same time, we have to be attentive and to recognize this Russian propaganda and the image they want to create. But just look at the picture of Lukashenko and Putin. Look at them, the way they stand, the way they look, the way they are dressed, the way they answer the questions, for example, prepared questions from the prepared journalists, and it all looks as they are losers. Why? Because they are losers. You can watch my new series Soviet Myths Debunked, where we talk a lot about old Soviet ideas that still fuel Russia and Belarus, because Belarus is totally under Soviet and under Russian influence. Thank you for watching, thank you for your support, buying me coffees and becoming my patrons, and thank you for the support of Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!